Hey there, and welcome to episode 59 of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast, where today I am chatting with the lovely Ashlee Sang all about how to create an impactful brand for your business. Ashlee is a values aligned messaging and marketing consultant for conscious and caring leaders, helping them connect their head with their hearts and find the right words so that they can transform their vision and brand story into messages their ideal customers love. Join us as she shares how to align your business with your core values, the 6 elements that go into creating an impactful brand, how to identify who your dream client is, and how to finally nail that elevator pitch so that you can convey who you are and what you do with confidence and ease. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur, the podcast for mums with an online business who are ready to take back their time, home, business, and self so they can restore the balance and thrive, both at home and at work, without feeling like they have to choose between the two. I'm your host, Sarah Dew, life and biz coach for mumpreneurs. I'm also a mum, stepmom, wife, introvert, breast cancer survivor, and your mentor for making a change for the better. I've learned how to go from surviving to thriving and unapologetically create a business I love and the life I want for me and my family without worrying about what other people think. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Because being an unapologetic mompreneur doesn't mean that we're selfish or that we don't care about others. It simply means that we are not afraid to show up as our true, authentic selves, to step into our purpose, do what we know is right for ourselves and the ones we love, and take the steps we need to take to make our dream life and business a reality. Join me each week where I'll be sharing all of my best tips and strategies, plus the occasional dose of tough but gentle love to help you feel empowered, motivated, and confident to take action so that you can become the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. So, are you ready to unapologetically create a business and life you love? Let's do this. Okay. Hey, Ashlee, welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast.
Hi, thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad that you are joining us and we're going to be chatting all about branding and the importance of having a brand and how to get going on all of it. So I'm super excited to dive in on all of that. And we briefly connected a little while back on a summit that we both spoke at. But for anybody that is listening or watching on the YouTube channel and hasn't met you before, just to share a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, your family, what's brought you to where you are at right now.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I'll start with the family side because I have my newborn sitting right next to me. And I just said sorry in advance. And then I'm realizing this is the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. So I really love that safe space that you are creating for women like me, other family, heads. So thank you for that. I also have my 2.5-year-old who would absolutely not let me be recording a podcast right now. So yeah. And then my husband, of course. So that is my family situation here in central Illinois. And my husband is from Senegal, so that's a big part of our sort of life identity as well. And then on the work front, I do values aligned brand messaging strategy, which is what we're going to be unpacking today. But essentially, I work with really experienced and passionate women mostly and their brand to figure out, what do you want to stand for? How do you want to stand out? Who are those exact people you want to reach and in what way? And so it's a little bit of magic, it's a little bit of science, it's a really deeply personal process. And I love every part of it. And then I do related marketing consulting branching from that, right? I really view the values aligned brand messaging as the foundation for a really strong business brand ability to connect. And I have a background in international development and nonprofits, and sort of found my way to social entrepreneurship and have been stemming off from there ever since. So really, the whole idea is to work with founders, community leaders, whoever, to figure out what it is that is going to connect on a really deeply human level with not only themselves and their audience, but any team members, and create a business or an organization that feels really good and has the ability to do a lot of good.
Amazing. I love that so, so much. And it's so important because when we think about branding, it's just so easy to just think about our website, our colors, our fonts, and all of that. But it is just way, way, way so much more than that. And it's actually in the fact that you're doing it where it's value aligned and tapping into who we are and what we want. That is so, so important, because that is why we start our businesses, because we're passionate about something. We have something that we stand for, that we believe in, that we want, and we know that we can help other people do that. So to be able to bring that into our branding and our messaging and everything else is just, and that's the way that you do it, it's just amazing. So I know we're going to be diving into like the elements of creating an impactful brand, and this, you've got 6 different elements that go into that, and how and why, and establishing our brand values is so important, and how that can help us to have a purposeful business. So just want to share what branding actually means, and and how we can get started and actually putting that together.
Yeah. So for me, whether we're talking about a visual brand, brand messaging, brand in general, brand is perception. It is your reputation. It's how people think of you and talk about you when you are not in the room or when they engage with you. It is simply everything that you're putting out in the world and everything that people are picking up from that, right? And so to a certain extent, we don't have control over our brand, in that we can't control how people are going to perceive or receive us, but we can absolutely be as intentional as possible with what we put out there, with the energy that we come with the words that we use, with the visuals that we leverage, and with the entire experience. And for me, brand messaging is the foundation, not only for the marketing mechanisms in your business, but also the operational decision making, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who you hire, how you charge, how you pay people, what softwares you use, if you have green web hosting or not, right? Like all of these things are a direct reflection of your values and the brand that you want to be building, block by block, piece by piece, the web you want to be weaving. So yeah, for me, brand is perception.
Amazing. And that makes so much sense, because then we can tap in actually what it is we want to put across, the message we want to share, how we want people to perceive us. Being authentic with that is what is going to attract our dream, our true tribe and our dream clients, isn't it? And it's so easy to try and be everything to everybody and do what we feel like everybody tells us we should be doing. But actually, if we tap into who we are, what matters, and share our values, that's when we create that powerful brand, isn't it? So how do we get started on identifying what those values are, and when you take your clients through that, what is all the sort of things that you get them to unpack to help them figure out what those values are?
Yeah, so values are they're a little slippery, right? Because they're so obvious that we live and breathe them every day. They are our operating system. They're how we show up. They're how we communicate. They are the center of everything. For me, our mission is our why, our vision is our what, our audience is obviously our who, and our values lay right in the middle, and they're that bridge, that conduit between the who and the what and the why. So to some extent, it's almost hard to place a word to them or an explanation to them because they're so inherent to us. Or for some founders, for some organizations, maybe it's a business that's been sort of running by the status quo for a while and they haven't sat and reflected. Or maybe you were really passionate about this one idea, but then you didn't realize how values really needed to come into play to every single aspect and element of the business, right? So either way, it can be really, really tricky because we are so, so close to it. So my process for brand values is 3-part. And I have some podcast episodes and resources around this, but basically it is to establish what your brand values are, right? Actually put a name to them. And this is a deeply self-reflective process. For people like me, I have to brain dump like 20, 30, 40 things I'm so, so passionate about, and then find the common threads. For some people, they might be a little bit more minimal and sort of come out the gates with, okay, no, I know these big ideas are important to me. Regardless, I think it's really useful to find these umbrella terms. So if, for example, you think freedom is really important to you, maybe it is. Or if you're someone like me, freedom, the idea of it sort of vaguely tucks under this umbrella of exploration, which is much more expansive for me, much more important to me. I'm living out exploration much, much more actively than I am quote unquote freedom.
Mhm.
I got two littles. I have a business. I have a household to run. I'm not particularly free in a lot of ways, but I am free to explore within and through my business. So that exploration part is really important to me. So step one is establish. Step two is to actively define what it means to you and your business and your people, right? Your audience. Because I have a lot of clients who, for example, have valued simplicity or community or collaboration. I feel like those are sort of the top three that come up, but they manifest completely differently in their business, in their messaging, in their team building, in the way they interact with their clients and the offer suite that they have, simply because they define what that means to them differently than the next business over. So we establish, we define, and then the most important part where all the magic happens is to apply. It's not enough to simply do the values exercise and, maybe slap it on an about page or, your onboarding docs or whatever it is. And then, maybe look at it again a year later. It's really essential to be using those values as a lens for every single piece of copy, content, every conversation, every decision that you're making, to put it through that lens, right? Is this aligned with my value of transparency or inclusivity or luxury or whatever it is your brand value is? Really holding up a mirror against those values to see, does this reflect back? Does this align? And so it's both very simple and very complicated because it is so personal. Or, if you have a team, there might be lots of voices who have opinions about it. So I highly recommend getting outside perspective from obviously a consultant like me, a business coach if you have one, even a life partner or best friend, a mastermind, free or paid, somewhere like your Facebook community potentially, right? Somewhere where you can sort of like put this out in the world and have it reflected back to you, either validated or some questions asked, have some holes poked in it so that you can make it stronger and stronger and stronger each iteration.
Excellent. That is such great advice because it's easy to think that we just pick a few words and then think that we're done and then that's it. But actually, are we then applying them and actually making them part of what we're doing and using them almost as like a compass to guide us through what we're doing in our business and how we're showing up? I absolutely love that, and actually taking that and applying it into the business, because like for me, my values is family and personal growth and balance as a Libran, and defining what that looks like to me, and the whole unapologeticness, which is in totally was what my brand is, of being apologetic in everything that I do, and encouraging and empowering all of the mums in my community to do just that. But to actually put it out there and have it reflect back for you, and asking people if that is how they perceive you and what you're doing and everything, can be a really good check-in point. So that's such a great tip. So looking at actually creating the values and making them aligned in the messaging, you mentioned that you've got 6 elements that you use to do. Do you want to just share those with us and how we can go through those?
Yeah. So for every full brand messaging strategy I do it as an intensive. That's how my brain works. That's how my clients like to operate. We are fast movers. We're really into momentum, but also it really suits my motherhood schedule. So I do brand messaging intensives. And for every single brand messaging guide I create, I start with a brand statement, which is sort of like an elevator pitch. It's sort of like the formal version of, who are you? What do you do? Who's it for? Why does it matter? Really trying to capture all of those questions in, 1, 2 sentences. Really, who are you as a brand? And then one level beneath that, either sort of zooming in or zooming out, however your brain works, is the mission statement. So again, your why this matters so much to you, to the world, to your people, really establishing the work that you do. Why is it so important for you to be doing it, right? That mission statement. And then we have, of course, brand values, not only what they are, but what they mean to you as a brand, as a founder. Again, whether you're like a solopreneur, practitioner, service provider, or whether you're a behind the scenes founder, it doesn't matter. There should absolutely still be that really, really strong values alignment. And then I include brand voice, which is much more internal, but it's something that is felt in every single conversation, piece of copy, piece of content. It's how you sound, how you come across, right? So even if you are owning up to a big mistake or celebrating a big win, that tone might change, but your voice is the same. Do you curse a lot? Are you really permission giving? Are you really soft? Are you really bold? That sort of thing. So that is the brand voice. And then, of course, your audience is so, so essential to your brand. Who you are creating for, who you are pricing for, who you are writing for or speaking to is so essential. So really defining who are those people. Sometimes it's groups of people, but sometimes it's that one super essential core audience for you, mompreneurs, right? Who want to be living unapologetically. But what makes them tick? Who are they beyond that? And then the sixth sort of most expansive part is core messages, little marketing snippets, little blurbs that can be copy, pasted, smushed together, pulled apart, used as content prompts, used as headlines, used as social captions, used in event pages or anywhere that you need a little blurb of like, oh, yes, this is what I'm trying to capture today in this context. Those are the core messages. And so I often, depending on the business, I often divide them into about the brand, overarchingly, about the offers, and then about the founder, but it really depends on the brand. And so those are the elements that go into every single guide that I create, and they all feed into each other. And they all are something that you're able to then pass off to a visual designer, to a social media manager, to a VA. I've even had ops partners who use the brand messaging guide to figure out this is the user experience our clients want to have. This is the like CRM backend experience for the business owner that needs to be reflected based on these values, right? It's really cool to be able to see how this process is able to be expanded across every single, quote unquote, department of your business or any person you outsource with. It's a really, really powerful tool.
Amazing. I wouldn't you just and just thinking about it initially, you wouldn't think that all of that goes into how powerful that is and how much of that gives you the direction of what you're doing. And it must make them, you must see like a change in your clients when you start working with them and they've just got, really struggling with that clarity, but then how clear they are going forward, that it must really like make them so much more confident about what they're doing and everything. And to then have, even down to having that marketing blurb, that is something I have never thought of doing in my business and having, but actually it makes so much sense. It would make it so much easier to share everything that you do. And just even that initial thing with having like the elevator pitch of, who you are, what you do, who you help, but seeing how it all fits together and how it all weaves together, I can imagine it must be really, really fascinating digging in with all of your clients and going through it all with them.
Yeah, I love jigsaw puzzles and like logic puzzles and stuff. So it's like that, but with business, with words, it's really, really fun. It's really personal. And it's definitely a bit of a challenge. Like if everyone could do this for themselves, they'd be doing it, right? What's really interesting is I often work with fellow marketers, people who know this is really, really important, but they are so close to it that they simply, quote unquote, cannot do it themselves. Of course, they probably could in terms of skill, but we have that mental barrier that is preventing us from being able to see ourselves in the light that we want to be seen in. We often don't give ourselves enough credit, or we can't see how this experience is now directly reflected in this offer. And so sometimes it just takes someone saying, hello, you are amazing. Here's exactly how you can communicate this, that really just unlocks the floodgates.
Yeah, so I think we could just be so close to it ourselves, can't we? That it's that wood for the trees thing, and we can't really just see it or unpack it or know where to start. So, do you find there is one particular area out of those six elements that people struggle with the most, or does it need to? Do you always start with it being the elevator pitch and then working your way through, or is it being clear on what your client is first? Is there anything that when you're first starting out, if somebody wants to walk away from this episode with a piece of paper and a pen and go, right, I'm going to try and start working on this, where would you suggest that they start?
Okay, I feel like that's two different questions. I would
Yeah.
suggest that they start with the brand values. That's where I would start. It is sort of the most, again, nebulous, but also the most essential. Everything else is a direct reflection of those values. So that's where I would start if you were doing this on your own, if you were starting this with someone else, if you have a co-founder or a VA or someone, I would start with those values first. And then you had asked what people get tripped up on the most. I actually think often it's that brand statement or that elevator pitch, that idea of, oh, but I'm so passionate about so many things. I work with so many people. I have so many skills or so many offerings. Yeah, that's amazing. We are multi-passionate, super complex humans. Of course you do, and you are. And yet we need a really concise way to be able to open that door to conversation, right? You can always elaborate if you have more character count, if someone leans in and says, oh, really? How? But we have to, capture that attention initially, right? We have to be able to boil it down for social profiles, for boilerplates, for speaker bios. We have to be able to boil it down, right? And so it is that condensing that tends to trip people up the most. And it's a lot to be able to capture big ideas with small words, right? And so I think the brand statement, the elevator pitch, that part of it is what trips people up the most.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, I would say that that's the case. I've spent years trying to refine my elevator pitch and I've changed it so many times and it's been really long. I've had to figure out how to condense it down and just how to convey in that short, moment snap of just making it super, super clear when you're speaking to somebody or sharing about yourself of who you are and what you do and how you can help them. And it's actually a whole lot harder than we think it's going to be, isn't it? It's really difficult. And it's something that I've definitely struggled with. And it's only really the last year or so, and since doing this podcast and rebranding from a simple and contented life to the unapologetic mompreneur, that it's got easier. But that's, I think, partly because of what my title is, that it kind of gave me the permission to actually share who it is and what I wanted to do. And I think that can be so hard sometimes with everybody wanting to feel like they're getting it right or that they're putting the best message across or trying to make it perfect, and if they're going to upset somebody or polarize somebody or push the people away. And what sort of advice do you have for that if somebody is feeling like they don't want to upset people or leave people out, but they really they know who their ideal client is, but they're worried of just not including everybody, or how to actually hone in on what it is they want to say?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked this. Listener, we did not plant this, but yes, this is such an essential question and issue and worry that so many of us have. Okay, so twofold. First, you said, oh, I've changed it so many times. Of course you have. What's both beautiful and so frustrating about building a business, creating a brand, doing your brand messaging, it will evolve. It will change. The second you finish your website, you're going to think of something else that you're going to want to change, or you have a conversation with the most perfect client ever and you're like, oh, this needs to be on my website or in my bio immediately. And dang it, I just redid that, right? So it will be an iteration. Even your values can change over time, right? We evolve as humans, as business owners, and our audiences evolve and directly need to be reflected in the brand as well. So full permission to do it and then change it, right? As long as it's not loosey-goosey. And then in terms of sorry, what was the second part? The second part of the question was changing your brand and then
not worrying about what other people think of how to not disappoint or let people down, and make sure, even though you feel like who your person is that you want to speak to and work with the most.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. So, and then in terms of polarizing, okay. So you can even have a very soft, gentle brand, and you will still need to pick a camp to some extent. That is the beauty of leading with your values, is you'll know whether or not it feels right, and how extreme you need to be, if you talk about a current event or not, how neutral you stay or not. But even just putting a stake in the ground of, I only work with women, I only work with moms, I only work with people with chronic illness, I only work with this racial identity or this nationality background, whatever it is that is important to you. having those brand values to lean back on, to point to, for collaborators, for clients, for team members, and for yourself for sure, is so, so essential. And we talk so much about finding the right clients, attracting our ideal clients, but the other side of that coin is repelling the wrong fit people, right? And I think when you're first starting your business, or when you want to iterate in some way, yeah, maybe you go through some wrong fit people or situations or collaborations, and like that's fine. That's how we know it's not the right fit, right? um, but once you have a good fit, can you double down on that? Can you figure out, ooh, I really liked this personality, or I really liked this stage of business, or I really liked this identity or shared experience, or whatever it is? Can you lean more into that? Can you refine? Can you zoom in from there? Because ultimately, you're going to be attracting people who are like other people like them, right? So if you have a wrong fit client, they might, sorry, they might, we got a newborn here. If you have a wrong fit client, they might be referring you to other wrong fit clients just like them. Or they might be saying, oh, she's not the person for me. This was not a great experience. Or like, it was just so. It's because they weren't the perfect fit, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if you find a perfect fit client, they can bring in more perfect fit clients just like them. They can be advocates on your behalf, which is so, so powerful. So many of us, especially service providers, but even product-based businesses, rely on word of mouth. Um, I don't recommend it exclusively, but for so many of us, that is a huge driver of revenue, business in our brand, right? So having really powerful pools of people to be able to draw from, but then also having them be able to communicate in a really succinct, clear, values aligned way why they should be working with you. That is just so, so powerful. That is worth its weight in gold and effort and headache and all the things. So yeah, put a stake in the ground as soon as you feel ready to. Um, and yeah, niching is basically another word for what we're talking about. And I have absolutely struggled with that. I'm, again, someone who's very expansive. I want to do all the things and work with all the people and do all the offerings, but the more specific we can be, the better.
Totally agree. Oh, there is so much goodness in that there. And it's exactly how I feel that I spent so long in my business. I mean, and when you first start out, like you said, it's right. It takes you a while to figure out who it is that you like to work with the most and what your kind of ideal client really is like and your dream client and all of that. But it does take a while to sort of hone in. And I was trying to help, I wanted to help all the mums. And it was just, that was all the mums. And, regardless of whether they had newborns or whether they had, like me, with teens. And I just wanted to help everybody. And it was so hard to be able to really, and I just wanted to put that stake in the ground. And I've learned over the last few years that I absolutely love my most favorite clients are other mums in the business where their kids are, at school because they're doing the margins of the school hours and they're just wanting to do things on their term and drop that that constant worry and that constant fear of showing up and being judged and worrying about what other people think and holding themselves back and not going for what they really, really want and creating and designing the life they want for their family as well as what they want in their business because they're so paralyzed about worrying about what other people think. And once I put that stake in the ground about a year, it's almost a year since I launched my podcast. Once I did that and everything changed in my business and I've had my business for nearly 7 years now and I have made so much more progress in the last 12 months than all of that time previously because I hadn't put that stake in the ground. I wasn't owning my values. I wasn't tapping into who my dream client was, who I love working with the most, and everything that I stood for. And it's just, I think sometimes you need that permission. And it's such a mindset shift, isn't it? That we think that we have to be out there doing everything for everybody and that we don't want to upset people or leave people out. But actually, it's okay to do that because if we adopt the mindset shift that you shared right there, that was so powerful of knowing that it's going to attract our tribe, but also that tribe is then going to go and bring in more people of the same. That's hugely powerful. That makes it so much easier and actually gives us that permission to really go after for and start serving and reaching out and sharing the message we want for the people that resonate with us the most. That's so powerful. Thank you. I'm so glad that you shared that because I know it's something that so many people struggle with, but reframing it like that makes such a difference.
Yeah. And another reframe. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Um, Another way to think of it is the most generous thing you can do is to be specific, is to specialize in that identity, right? You just named so many psychographic elements of your audience persona, right? What they care about, how they feel, how they think, what they're doing with their day, right? So demographically, they're moms, right? Okay, they check that box. But like, what about a mom? Or they're business owners. Okay. But the way you reach them, the way you resonate with them is all of those psychographic elements. And also by being the perfect fit for someone, and not working with the not quite right fit for that other person, we are being as generous as possible because there are a million and one other coaches, copywriters, VAs, stroller producers, whatever it is that you create in your business, there's another person or business doing that, right? So if you can be the perfect fit for someone, that's the most generous thing you can do.
Love it, absolutely. And that is what it comes down to, because people want to work with people, don't they? They want, and they choose, like you said, there's so many other coaches and service providers and VAs and whatever it might be out there. But when somebody chooses you, it's because it's something that is about you, that they like, that they feel like they can connect with, that they feel like they can, you know, that you get them, that you've been where they are, that you can help them with what they're looking for, and whatever those little elements are, or even if it's just one particular value that you have that you share, that resonates with them, of like, yes, I get that, that's what I believe in too. That's the thing that's going to make them choose you over choosing somebody else, isn't it? And having those and standing for that is so important.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I mean, that is business, right? That is what we're doing here. When we show up every day, when we close our computer every night, like that is what we are doing. Is putting something out in the world that actually serves someone and their real needs and desires, and then having that ripple effect through the money that we make, the money that we spend, the ability we have to change someone's lives, and that effect that it has on ourselves, on our families, on our communities. It is all connected. That's why I talk so much about doing a business that not only feels good, but also does good, right? It all starts with our ability to have those sales, to create a reputation, to be resourced to make the change we want to make, whatever that looks like or feels like for each of us.
And that is what makes it so rewarding, because when we start a business, as I said, it's something because usually because we're passionate about something, and knowing that we are then owning our values and owning us and using our true voice and being ourselves unapologetically, that is then knowing that we're doing good in the world, for that just makes it so much more rewarding. And knowing, nothing makes me happier that at the end of the day that I know that I've some way or another helped another mum with a business, juggling family, work, life, and doing things that are on her terms without worrying about what other people think, knowing that I'm creating that ripple effect, because then that's empowering her to go out and do that. But then she's probably sharing that with her friends, with her family, and they're actually seeing, something has changed with her, that it makes them curious, that they want to then do something about the same thing too. And it just has that ripple effect. And it is so powerful knowing that you are out there doing good.
Yes, absolutely. It all adds up. Every single tiny change, every single big breakthrough, it all adds up.
Brilliant, absolutely. So if you've got, just interested and curious, because I don't have a team. I know at some point I'm almost at the stage where I need to, and I know that I'm ready to start hiring out and having a VA or something. But how do you go about then, if you have got team members, you've got a VA, you've got contractors that you work with, how do you go about sharing and conveying like the values to them so that you can get them on board and so that they can embody that for you too? Because you've mentioned that you work with teams as well. So how do you help them to convey that message and get everybody on board? Have you got any tips there?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, having them actually written down, like out of your head. Again, we live and breathe it. Great. That's wonderful. But also like put it down on paper, generally not real paper, it's probably a Google Doc or something, but like put it out in writing, in the world so that it can be shared. Um, and then one thing you could do is during the hiring process, you could share your values. You could ask their opinions on them. You could ask their values. And again, you don't need clones of you, just like your audience doesn't need to be a clone of you. Sometimes it actually makes sense to have some different points of view with the people you're hiring, because, you're hiring out someone who has strengths and different perspectives than you do, right? Sometimes you want it to be perfectly aligned. That's your call, that's your situation. But you can absolutely share your values and ask their opinion on values. If you are already running a team, or like a team sort of agency model or a more formal team setting is important to you, I've done many facilitated sessions with teams, getting buy-in from everyone. And that way, like if you even think of like a big corporate setting, right, which is not who we're working with, but imagine that you need to do like a giant software overhaul. No one wants that. No one ever wants that. That's like a headache for everyone involved for months on end. It's a huge expense, whatever. But if you can point to your value of efficiency or of transparency, or like whatever your value is, or an amalgamation of your values, you can say, this is why we made this really difficult decision. Whether it's software, a hire, a fire, a complete shift in business model, whether or not to attend this conference or not, you're able to point to those values and you're able to get that collective buy-in sooner. So again, whether your team is in a facilitated session directly influencing your values and what they mean to the organization and the people involved, or whether they are simply absorbing it and translating it on their own terms. Of course, it's going to go through another human, right? So it's going to manifest a little bit differently based on how they perceive it. But the more explicit we can be, the better. So really just involving your team in the values process at any stage, the establish, the define, and or for sure the application is super important. And then you can even do, if you do staff meetings or if you do monthly check-ins with your VA or something like that, you can, again, just chat at the top of the meeting, the end of the meeting. These are our values. Here are some decisions we've made in direct reflection of that. Yeah, there are lots of ways to weave it in. You can even, like, let's say you're working with a content creator. You can have your values be your content pillars and say, okay, content creator, please make sure these are manifested and reflected in some way in every piece of content, implicitly or explicitly, etc.
Awesome. That is such great tips. And I think it works both ways as well, whether you have a team or not. And you could even like checking in each month on what you're doing and what your goals are and everything. You can do exactly the same personally, can't you? And as a check-in point, and one of my sessions that I take my clients through, if your biz your way, and taking back and not worrying about what other people think, is actually before you say yes to something, like you mentioned conferences and things, is actually asking yourself, does that fit with my core values? Is that a true reflection of what my messaging is in my business, of how I want my business to be? So that is super, super powerful. Thank you so much for all of this. This has been incredible, and I feel like I could talk to you with you about this for hours. So we might have to get you back on again on the podcast again. That would be amazing. I know that you've got a freebie to share, so if you wanted to chat about that in a second, and your links in case people want to find out more about you and want to work with you, it sounds amazing. So if people want to do that, before we do that, I always have one question that I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, what does being an unapologetic mompreneur mean to you? And how are you showing up unapologetically every day, both as a mom and as the boss of your business?
Ooh, what a question, right? I feel like that's like an existential thesis that we could all be writing. But I think at the end of the day, it is really prioritizing my kids first. But then also for me, knowing that running my business is really essential to my identity as a human outside of motherhood, as a contributor to society and the economy and just my own personal being. And so reframing it as, yes, that's time away from my kids or attention away from my kids, but it's also a really powerful example for them. It is a way I contribute to our household. It is a way that I'm able to then be more present with my kids because I feel fulfilled in other ways. So yeah, that is that balance that we're always perpetually trying to strike, and is shifting with every phase of motherhood and parenthood and child life stages as well. So yeah, it's a lot, but it is important for us to find what works for us in any given moment.
Amazing. I love that so much. Wonderful. So do you want to just wrapping up, finish up and share about your freebie and where people can get? We'll make sure the links are in the show notes and everything as well. And just where people can find you.
Yes, thank you. So actually, I have a free visionaries guide to elevator pitches. We talked about how that is so tricky for so many people. So I have a few different frameworks. I have a few different tips all around the elevator pitch. So I have that at ashleesang.com/unapologeticmom. We're getting fussy over here. And then I am all over the internet at Ashlee Sang or Ashlee Sang Consulting.
Perfect. We will make sure that all of those are in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us. And, you know, true unapologetic mompreneur star with your little bubba on your lap. And I know he's such a tiny little bub. So it's so amazing that he's joined us as well. And thank you. I'm going to let you go so you can go and do your mum thing and do what you need to with him. And we will make sure that all the links are in there. And go and snag Ashlee's freebie and go check her out. Go follow her on Instagram. Send her a message. I'm sure she'd love to know what your biggest takeaway is. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute fun conversation. And yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Ashlee.
Thank you to you, and thank you to the listeners for all the grace with all the baby noises in the background. Really appreciate it.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will chat with you all in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining me for another installment of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to leave me a rating and a review so that other mompreneurs can find this podcast too. Here's to unapologetically becoming the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Bye for now.